Good morning and welcome to our June 20th, 2019 business meeting. And I'm going to make the little quick announcement first that Commissioner Humbertston is in Curry County on at an ONC meeting. That's Oregon, California. It's a forestry meeting, and Commissioner Schrader is also out today. So Gary, would you please take the roll?
Yes. First, staff support today: Stephen Madcore, County Counsel; Mary Rathke, Clerk to the Board. Roll call: Commissioner Fisher.
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds.
Here.
Commissioner Savas.
Here.
Chair Bernard.
Here. Please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And first off, I'm going to announce that we are going to recess as a Board of County Commissioners and convene as the Housing Authority Board for the next item. And with that, we're introducing Housing Authority Commissioner Paul Reynolds.
Thank you.
You may not have recognized him in your campaign material. So with that, Gary?
Yes. First, a presentation: Housing Authority's role in the Hillside Manor Public Housing Fire Impacts and Recovery. Presenting is Jill Smith, Director of the Housing Authority.
Thank you, Jill, for being here today, and the folks in the orange vests.
Yes, that's our safety committee at Hillside Manor. And they're all residents that had a really important role in what was a very unfortunate incident. And I just want to recognize them and the staff and point out the amazing result that their work and achievement as a team, that was all about teamwork, what resulted from that. Unfortunately, I know you all know about this. It was several months ago. On February 6th at about 9:30 in the morning, the fire alarm went off at the manor in Milwaukee, which is public housing, and it's the home to 100 residents. And a group of them formed a safety committee. And with that alarm going off, there was a fire, and the sprinkler system immediately flooded the third floor and the west wing of our second floor on the manor. And really, that's where the majority of the damage and the problems came, was from the water. And things could have been much worse. We're thankful that the water was there, but there was substantial flooding. And a lot of folks were impacted. And by the time I arrived, which was probably about an hour after that happened, an hour or two, staff already had all of the residents in the community building safe. They were helping them gather their belongings one at a time out of their units. They had the Red Cross there. The firefighters had dealt with everything. Maintenance was there. Don Miller took me on a tour of everything to see. I mean, they just had everything under control. Anything dangerous to residents was cordoned off, so there was no access. Nobody could get hurt. The Red Cross were there actively engaged in trying to help people. These folks were helping their neighbors. We had social services coordinating transportation for people to take them either to their families. Chuck Robbins was on the phone. He coordinated hotels. And by the time it was about 5:30 or 6, getting to where people had been fed and given water and things. But there's a lot of stress and anxiety around this. It was about 5:30, the Red Cross folks came up to me and said, well, we've prepared a shelter. We're ready to shelter your residents. There were about 18 folks without a place to stay that night, and we didn't have to use their shelter services because we had a place and transportation for every single resident. They were all put into a motel. And I will never forget the Red Cross saying to me, wow, this has never happened to us before. They said, we do this work, unfortunately, very often in Multnomah County. I'm just quoting. And you guys have just responded amazingly. So it was just amazing teamwork. And so proud to be part. I think this was before I was actually a part of the Housing Authority officially. It was like the day before I was officially going to begin. So a great... terrible reason to become acquainted with the amazing teamwork. But we wanted to recognize these folks. No one was injured other than one pet. There was one pet fatality, unfortunately. But if you're okay with this, I'd love everyone that participated in making this response so successful to come up and be recognized by the board and have their picture taken with you. And I have certificates for everyone that I will give you out in the hallway, if that's okay. So when I call your name, if you'll come up, Allison Coe, who's our property manager there, who was in, just, Mary will help us. Hillary Merritt, Thomas Williams, these are all of our employees that were so important in helping deal with this. Jean Shine, Jack Bear, Don Miller, Preston Suprick, Nick Johnson, Sonia Sauter, Jamila Hart, who coordinates all of our resident services expertly, Amy Brinkley, Roy Wheeler, Chuck Robbins is out today on vacation, and Rich Malloy, who oversees all of the public housing. Thank you, staff. And then our amazing safety team, Ann Leenstra, Donna Ryan, Ali Zumwalt, Colin Kendrick, Nellie Albee was out with me, making sure everybody was in a van on their way until 6 o'clock. She didn't leave. It was amazing. Kathy Haas, sorry if I'm not saying your names right, Hazy. Jesse Lewis, Alan Ronfelt, Marge Lockhart, Julie Leake, and Glenda Lyle. And in addition, we want to thank the Social Services and Behavioral Health Division, who helped provide rides and ongoing, just trauma support for the folks who were displaced and were part of a really traumatic event. The Red Cross was amazing, taxi services, contractors, and most of all, our local firefighters. But just thank you.
Great, so what are we doing? Gonna come up here and then everyone's gonna come in? All right, let's go.
It's a lot of folks. That's a good idea. Go from the back.
Changing it.
I'll stand on my,
Yeah, good idea.
oh, careful. Oh, good, she's on a good.
Squeeze in there.
All right.
Good, thank you. Well, I'd like to, as a commission, thank you for all you did, staff and folks in the safety committee. Just so you know, this building is the tallest building in Clackamas County. 8 floors, right? 9. I forgot about that secret 9th floor. But I've known many people over the years. I was mayor of Milwaukee and been to dinner there a number of times. And the fire department had to buy a ladder truck for it. I remember that. So we appreciate all you did and that everyone made it out okay. And I assume it's done and everybody's back in.
Yes, actually, everyone was back in within about 10 days.
Wow, that's good.
Very quick.
And I imagine that had to do with facilities and then subcontractors and all the work they did.
Yes, subcontractors and maintenance coordinating it.
Great. Paul?
So you mentioned there's 100 residents there. How many were actually displaced as a result of that fire?
18.
18.
Yeah. Well, thank you again very much, and I appreciate you coming in today. And If you ever have any problems, Paul Reynolds is your representative. Well, thank you. You're welcome to leave if you like, or you're welcome to hang around for the next 6 hours. I'm just kidding.
It's only 5 today.
It's only 5 today. Thank you.
You guys use the back door that's open.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll break for just a couple of minutes.
No?
Well, it looks like we could probably go ahead and start back up. Thank you. And the next item on the agenda is the Housing Authority consent agenda. I'd ask the clerk to read the Housing Authority consent agenda by title.
Okay, today's Housing Authority consent agenda, a resolution 1938, approving the Housing Authority of Clackamas County's fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, and in the matter of writing off uncollectible accounts for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2019.
Great. Do any commissioner want to remove any items from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the Housing Authority consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries, and thank you, Mr. Reynolds, for your time.
Thank you.
Glad you could be in a picture finally.
Thank you.
The circumstances weren't great, but glad you're in the picture. With that, I'll announce that the board will adjourn as the Housing Authority Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners for the remainder of the meeting. And we have two folks who'd like to testify, Sandy Carter and Les Poole. Thank you for taking the time to come in today. Appreciate it. Sandy, you're up first. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Carter. I live at 2555 Dillow Drive, West Lynn. I'm a county taxpayer, and I'd like to talk about the county's relationship with the Port of Portland. The Port of Portland, for which this county collects property taxes, was established by the legislature in 1891. Here's a summary of the port's purposes today from its own budget document. Today, the port is charged with promoting aviation, maritime, commercial, and industrial interests within Clackamas, Multnomah, and Washington counties, including the city of Portland. The scope of port services extends beyond this immediate metropolitan area to farmers and other industries from inland regions of the Northwest. Here's the port's broad mission statement: to provide competitive cargo and passenger access to regional, national, and international markets while enhancing the region's economy and quality of life. According to an Eco Northwest report, property taxes make up 3% of the port's general operating revenues. The Port of Portland spends general and bond construction revenues on marine industrial development, marine terminals and industrial parks, and navigation, which means the Dredge Oregon. The port's marine capital construction budget from Tri-County property tax collections for last year totaled approximately $12.4 million, including $3.3 million from Clackamas County property taxpayers. The port owned the Molino Airport in Clackamas County until 2007. Since it sold that property to the Oregon Department of Aviation, it has owned no facilities in Clackamas County, yet continues to levy and receive property taxes from the county, including last year's $3.3 million. I would love to see a figure for the total amount collected for the port's marine capital construction budget by my county over the 12-year period since Molino Airport was sold by the port. I believe it could safely be estimated at close to $30 million. As a county taxpayer, I have supported the work of the port for most of my adult life. After looking through the port's budget document presented to you all earlier this year, I feel there's an outstanding tax equity issue unaddressed by the county since the Molino Airport port dropped off the port's portfolio? Have we gotten back some $30 million in benefits? It seems that this county stopped getting any on-the-ground return for the many millions that we have sent into the port's marine construction budget since 2007. I strongly encourage the commission to focus on how the port could restore some fairness to this relationship. The port will emphasize increases to regional jobs and product movement. I would point to increases in regional traffic congestion, including car-carrying trucks and longer waits at train crossings. How could the port make amends for over a decade of zero on-the-ground investment in Clackamas County property taxes here? How about stepping up to assist with getting the locks repaired and reopened? That would seem to fit with all of the port's statements of mission and values. Just a thought. The port, to an extent to be determined by this board, is taking advantage of a grandfathered relationship that needs another look. Thank you for your consideration of this issue.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, well, thank you for being here, Sandy. You raised a good point, and one that I looked into actually years ago when I took on the role of transportation at the county. As you may know, when the locks were open and when the locks were closed, it was based on tonnage and the literally amount of tonnage that was being moved. And the port then, which I tried to get to know and met with them at their facilities, actually a couple times, talked about what they do for us in the sense of, that we are one of the big freight movers. Clackamas County, Fred Meyer's location, number of the businesses that move freight. Our farming community moves freight through the area, and justified it with that aspect as well as the airport, the economic benefits to the region. You're right. The physical structures or the physical presence of the port is non-existent in Clackamas County when you look at it from that standpoint. But they do serve a good portion of that. I also looked at the state statute that forms ports, and they are very powerful and have a lot of flexibility. And I inquired about the locks long ago and even again recently. And unfortunately, Commissioner Schrader's not here today because she's on that locks commission that we're working to get this locks restored. So I do really appreciate your efforts. That you have been a strong advocate of getting the locks opened. And it's good to see you and know that I've looked into that. And I will share this again. And for those who don't know, that might be listening, the directors of the Port of Portland are appointed by the governor, as is with the TriMet board as well. So that it creates a difficulty when it comes to representation, because they really don't have to answer to the taxpayers. They really are appointed by the governor. So it's an interesting mixture of how they are actually really representative of our area, or Clackamas County. But they have been, I will say this on behalf of the port, they have been good partners as far as helping advocate for transportation improvements, because moving trucks through Clackamas County through the system. So we've been really good partners, and we also created a seat forum. I advocated for creating a seat forum on our C4 committee to get them better engaged in understanding what the needs are of Clackamas County.
We do have 2 commissioners on the port board who represent this county, so I think that is a good thing.
Yep.
So it might be appropriate to consider a letter again reminding them of the taxes they've collected and the need to find somebody to run the locks or to own the locks or to manage the locks. Just so you know, last night at T2020, which is the Metro bond discussion we had, river transportation was brought up, and somebody mentioned the locks. And so, it's being talked about. So we're going to see what we can do, and a good part of the letter might be river transit. We can't build in many areas more or larger roads, and traffic's going to get worse. Last night I tried to get to the meeting, and 99E was shut down because I had an on collision. So I was trying to get to Metro. It took me 2 hours to get to Metro. I had to take the ferry to get there, and to I-5, and I-5, of course, was a mess. So at least I got there before public comment was done. But anyway, it's on people's minds. A letter might be appropriate. And since Paul represents us on the transportation side, we'll make sure that it's brought up again.
Yeah, I just want to just say, you touched on something I wanted to make a reminder of, and I'll just have my staff help, and that is that when I heard about the river transportation issue come back up as a means, and actually a small group working on that, I asked for more information on that. I forgot who the representative was, and they said they would provide that. But my background from the propulsion side was that it's energy intensive. Very energy intensive, especially if when you're going upstream. It's much less intensive going downstream. But I wanted to get some numbers on the feasibility, the practical energy feasibility of actually river traffic and what it would take, whether it's electric or whether it's diesel or whatever the propulsion energy source is. But
I have a chart about that I could send to
sure.
staff.
Sure. And I was trying to, because apparently they're working on a hybrid or a electric propelled vehicle, and I wanted to get some more information. I'm kind of a geeky in that area, so I wanted to get more information. I never got any follow through, so I went to the website. There was not much there, but love to see if we can get some more information on that. How feasible it is to come all the way up to the locks and up through the locks.
Take note of Paul saying he was geeky.
In that regard.
I heard rumors that they were actually buying the boats to do river taxi. I heard that. I don't know who I heard that from, but anyway, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Les.
Good morning, Les Poole. Great presentation. I must compliment my fellow commenter this morning. And sitting here, there's that recurring theme of what are we getting for our money? And that accountability that we all know is coming based on what's happening in Salem is knocking on every government office's door. So as I said last month when I brought it up, I hope you handle it well. And one of the issues here in the county, of course, is transportation. The other issue here in the county is transportation. So being that that's in my background, that's one reason you see me here every week talking about it. So wise investment and careful use of our money is a big issue right now, and the people in Salem are making everybody look bad. And when I say the people in Salem, I say the people that are out of control with the spending that's going on and the taxes and the carbon tax. We can't afford that. It's absurd. And I want to make it clear again that when I come here and talk about what's happening in Salem, it's because it's having a very direct effect on this lady, on this county, and certainly on your decisions. And it's very troubling. So pushback is coming in a variety of ways from a variety of places. And I just hope that when we get our budget done here in a week, that when folks look at it, they feel good about it, because I don't feel good about what I'm seeing in Salem at all. I wanted to comment real briefly on Park Avenue, which was a subject that was commented on last week, and certainly a subject at the town hall at Concord School, former Concord School. And I want to thank Commissioner Savas again for having an evening town hall format. I think we need more of that. The direct involvement. Must have been at least 60 people there. So more of that really is going to help, because transportation, again, is a big issue there at Park Avenue and on McLaughlin Boulevard. And we're doing a juggling act right now. So I'm very concerned about what happens at Park Avenue, because we can spend a lot of money there and maybe not get that great of a return. And the parking issue. And the downside of having the end of the light rail line at Park Avenue, something I opposed. I adamantly opposed it. And I adamantly opposed it because we got the end of the line at a bad location with inadequate parking. And the impacts to the trolley trail and what we got for our money was an undersized parking structure. So I really want to encourage the county to pursue any avenue you can to increase the parking capacity on the Orange Line. The parking lot at Tacoma Street was going to be 600 cars. in the zeal to get to Park Avenue, it was eliminated and became a surface parking lot. So if we're going to have that light rail work, we need the connectivity for more than buses, more than walkers, and more than bikes. We really need it for the automobiles. And right now, the temporary use of the Elks Lodge for parking is taking care of some of that, but it's really a stopgap solution. So I do appreciate anything you can do there. And one last comment briefly. I think the reason that the restrooms are locked at the Park and Ride is because of our homeless and our drug problem, because that's part of what comes with a Park and Ride, unfortunately. So hopefully we can get those restrooms open and we can address some of the shortcomings of the situation of Park Avenue, because there is some good potential there. I'm not talking about everything there having a downside, but if we don't address the parking issue, we need to do that first. That's all I'll say. And thank you again.
I just want to let you know that there was that town hall that Paul did have. I had not learned about the bathroom issue until that, so that was very helpful. As far as the parking structure and the bathrooms, we sent a letter already. There was, I would say that the parking structure stuff, I still don't understand this, but the parking structure issue on many of them is that they got the project done on time, under budget, and then it was under budget because they didn't build the parking structures. And then the federal government wanted the money back, the leftover money, which they took, and we're supposed to get a share of that back. And I've been talking with the what do you call the administrator from TriMet? What's his title?
Director? Or?
Yeah, director, about spending their money that they're supposed to get back and our money on addressing the parking structure issue. Also, last night at the T2020, it's one of the things I brought up is, completion of that parking structure and the bathrooms. Also, the locked bathrooms they're going to argue that it's for the transit, the bus drivers and the light rail drivers, because they had the same thing at the farmers market in Milwaukee with a lock so that the bus drivers had a place to go. And we'd always argued that. But, if they built a bathrooms where it was more visible, you wouldn't have that issue. You could figure out a way. Maybe you buy a ticket, you get a code. I don't know. And the other thing we talked about is a closed platform. And you could, if you built the bathrooms near the closed platform, people would have to be transit riders in order to use the restroom. I mean, that's a way you could do it too. But we're working on it. And I'm hopeful that one of the 3 projects that T2020 is looking at is the Sunrise, C2C, and McLaughlin Boulevard. And it seems like a perfect investment is to put that parking structure where it was proposed to be and address the bathroom issue. That would have a major impact on the Park Avenue area, along with other safety things. It's a win-win for everybody. And the other thing is that, lots of people, I hear lots of stories that people want to take light rail, but they go there, there's no parking, so they just drive on. And so we're not reducing traffic congestion if they have to drive past the parking structure to get to something. So,
Real quick,
yeah.
you brought something up. You brought the Sunrise up, and I forgot to mention that I went back and looked. It's June 26th, I want to say, will be the 3-year anniversary of opening of Phase 1. Yeah, it was June, and 3 years has flown by, and as someone that regularly uses that first leg, there's a lot of traffic and a lot of use, and the congestion there at where 212 runs into 205 has been dramatically reduced. So let's stay after getting that highway extended out towards Damascus. Thanks again.
There's also a great investment in bicycle path that is underutilized because it goes nowhere. It's like the bridge to nowhere. Anyway, Paul.
Yeah, so it's not director, it's general manager. So General Manager Doug Kelsey and I spoke this morning at JPAC before it started, and I shared with him the letter that we sent that he got. I just want to let you know that I was there the day it opened, and all the days afterwards, or many of the days afterwards. The Orange Line opened in September of 2015. I said the parking lot at Park Avenue structure was completely full that day. Early in the morning, as was the Tacoma station, was completely full. So they were underbuilt, and they were supposed to be structures of both. And if you, for those who rode the line and you looked at the entire line and what assets were built, just have people take a look and look out the window when you're taking a line. A lot of those investments that were promised in Portland were delivered. And some of the big aspects of what was built in Clackamas County, like the structures, were not.
Yeah, the Green Line, you know, they actually sold off part of that parking lot there. And housing project's going to be happening there. So at least that was preserved for affordable housing. That's at least one positive.
Yeah, but what I wanted to continue to say a little bit about that Park Avenue thing is what came up at the town hall and what's come up at subsequent meetings since then in discussions is just how much the community in that or surrounding area has changed, and not so much for the better. And I think that is something that at least TriMet should at least fulfill that one and maybe alleviate some of that. But the businesses have been impacted and the residents have been impacted. The fact that there's just no facilities, whether they're restroom facilities or parking facilities, and you know, we shouldn't have to suffer those impacts.
Great. Well, thank you. And let's move on to the next item. Gary, what's that?
Yes, a public hearing, Commissioners, a resolution for a Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and budget reduction for fiscal year 2018-2019. Jennifer Chambers, Budget Manager, will present.
Morning.
Thank you. Good morning. For the record, Jennifer Chambers, Budget Manager. Today I'm here to ask you to approve some supplemental budget changes that are 10% or greater, as well as a few budget reductions for various funds. These adjustments have been requested by our departments in keeping with Oregon local budget law. The first two requests recognize additional funding and how each department will budget those funds. The County School Fund has received an additional $155,557 from the U.S. Forest Reserve and budgeted that amount into special payments to local government. The Property Resources Fund is recognizing an additional $839,000 in revenue because the tax title land program sold more properties during the fiscal year than originally anticipated. The fund increases its appropriation in the general government category by $703,000 and the remainder of $136,000 in special payments, with the expectation of having a larger distribution to taxing agencies throughout the county. The next request will simply adjust the Transportation System Development Charge Fund so that their appropriation categories are better aligned with costs. The fund is achieving this by reducing its contingency, $46,000, and increasing the budget for special payments in that same amount. There's no change in the overall total expense requirements for the fund. The last two requests are for budget reductions. The Forest and Timber Management Program is reducing anticipated bond sale proceeds revenue by $4.5 million, as they did not issue debt to pursue a land purchase this year. Therefore, they're reducing the budget for land acquisition by the same amount. Finally, the Capital Projects Reserve Fund is adjusting its budget to better align with actual capital improvement project completions. The revenue budget will reduce by $9 million, while a corresponding reduction will be distributed between the building improvements expense category and their reserve. The required public notice was published on June 13th in the Lake Oswego Review. So unless there are any further questions, I respectfully request that the Board of County Commissioners approve the supplemental budget as presented.
Any clarifying questions from commissioners? Paul?
I just have a comment. And I do recognize we have a lot of new staff in our finance department as well as the administrator, so no reflection on anyone in the room. But as I mentioned during the budget committee meetings, and I'll talk about it more next Thursday when we approve the budget, as I recall in the audit, it identified 3 departments overspent had over expenditures beyond their budgeted amount, and that's embedded in the audit report. And as a process mechanism, we really, until we close out 2019, which is officially starts July 1st or June 30th, however day you want to look at it, one following the other. What we're doing here today, we really don't go into detail, nor does the Budget Committee in its quarterly meetings talk about the over expenditures that we experienced that I just indicated earlier for the 2018 budget. The Audit Committee didn't roll up their sleeves and acknowledge that or discuss that at any length. And I just really think about there's really a lack of discussion, attention, and opportunity to really talk about those things. And I'm hoping we can have a greater discussion about that. I just want to make that comment that how these impact over expenditures that are calculated in the budget and how those dollars are made up for is important, and especially with the fact that we are now $5.8 million of one-time funding that can't be sustained, that we need to cut, that ideally we could have cut even further, and frankly the cuts need to be even deeper next year, and we can't go on at an unsustainable pace. So I just want to make those comments and just talk about, from a process standpoint, is there a way of really, and I would just look to you all, of have a better highlight at this point in time when we do these. Sometimes I understand there are adjustments, and you've explained that. We've done this year after year. But if we can actually somehow shine a little bit of light on what that looks like at year end, because this is as close to the year end as we can get prior to the year end, and see how those departments are lining up as far as over expenditures.
So that's part of what you're doing today to prevent over expenditures. You're doing a supplemental budget, and actually you'll have an additional one next week. The last 3 days of the fiscal year, there'll be one more supplemental budget because departments are making sure that they're staying within their appropriations so they don't violate Oregon budget law. I appreciate your comments, Commissioner. You've raised them before. We've had these beginning conversations with the Budget Committee and with each of you commissioners as we start our new fiscal year. And as I've already shared with you, and I'll share again, we're entirely changing how we do the budget. We don't have a sustainable budget, and we're going to, not only because it's required by law, but that's my expectations. So there's an entirely new process coming forward, and I look forward to working with all of you on that.
And additionally, as far as making sure it doesn't happen again, most of them were fairly minor or timing issues, is that you're going to personally double check and make sure that that doesn't occur.
Yes, our department staff, our finance staff, I personally won't, but that's what I expect of the leadership of the departments. And I made my expectations clear, and I will to department directors, that this is really part of your performance to make sure that your budgets are spent within their appropriations.
All right, Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I was just, Administrator Schmidt said a lot of what I was going to say, but I just am confirming that this is just lining it up. This is good fiscal management. We are at the end of the year, and it's actually the one line in our description in the staff summary says, the effect of this resolution is a decrease in appropriation of $12,505,443. Including revenues as detailed below. So this is just what is being done to balance everything, to keep us fiscally responsible, helps us continue to keep our AAA bond rating and keep us fiscally sound. It is not a supplemental judgment that is any way reflective of us having over expenditures or having a runaway budget or having increased costs in this budget cycle that we did not account for. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Paul.
Well, I think that's a good point in the sense that we are now making the accounting of that, but I think we need to recognize that over expenditures are over expenditures and unsustainable budgets are unsustainable budgets. And the difficulty I have with this, and I'll just express my concern over the last 13 months, is that when a county commissioner and or, in this case, a budget committee member raise issues to the staff and to the audit committee or the audit firm, and they are not taken seriously, and we find ourselves where we are today, I find that troubling. And I don't want to sugarcoat anything, and I won't be sugarcoating anything next Thursday either.
All right, so, I mean, the external audit firm, which we've discussed over and over and over again, only job is to make sure that we follow regulations, federal regulations, and that's their job. They're not transactions. That's not their job to follow every transaction. They're just job is to make sure that we're following the law. And they found no findings that we had not followed the law. Zero. When I first started the audit committee about 10 years ago, we had 15 findings of error. We had zero. We do, and I know everyone knows, certainly Gary knows this, but we're having trouble finding staff in finance, people that have the certification needed. Back then, we had one CPA, and so we've come a long way. The audit firm, we changed audit firms. Because we weren't getting the service we needed. This firm, we go through an RFP process. We interview them. Has done an outstanding job. And every time we find an error or findings, we have to spend 2 to 3 years before they don't have to audit that again. And 2 to 3 years has passed. And so some of those audits, which costs a lot of money to do these audits, I think I'm wild guessing hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? A lot lower than that. A lot of money. We spend a lot of money. They just, have, because of the lack of findings, we've been able to reduce the things they need to go through and look at. Has saved us some money. Anyway, back to Paul again.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and technically, I think that, we have to make, and that's what we're doing today, we're making those adjustments, but, people need to realize that the typical audits that governments do are not digging in and looking to see if our business practices or whatever we're doing are sustainable. So if we continue, let's just say we overspent our budget, not overspent, but spent more money than we collected, and we did that in an unsustainable way until we didn't have any money left, and balance the books doing so, the auditor's not gonna call you out on that. It's not gonna be recognized, and that's what we're doing this year. We're overspending by $5.8 million. We're doing it legally, okay? It's one-time funding, but that's not sustainable. So it's not a good business practice. Is it balanced? Yes. Does it meet the legal requirements? Yes. Get that. I totally get that. And I want to, again, just put a shout out to our staff. Gary's made it his mission to work on this, to improve and change that. As our other staff are here, so it's no reflection on that. It's a situation, again, that I was raised over a year ago. And I think it's important. The other thing, too, is that, it would have been nice that if part of that $5.8 million could have been more auditors. When Metro or Multnomah County or Washington County have more independent internal auditors than we do, and we only have one and they have several, and that was one of the things that we raised last year, and I raised again this year, and we still didn't incorporate that into the budget. I don't think that's as efficient as we could be, or should be.
Well, we could talk about this all day, so I'm not going to respond. So we'll move on to, where are we? Did we vote yet?
Nope, we need to do that.
So I entertain a motion.
Oh, you need to open the hearing.
Open the hearing.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll open open the public hearing, ask if anyone would like to testify on this matter. I saw. With that, nobody wishes. We'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the resolution for Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and budget reduction for fiscal year 2018-2019.
Is there a second?
With concerns, I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve a resolution for Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10%.
Disregard that next line on the script.
What's that?
The typo on the script.
Oh, what's the typo?
Further discussion. You don't need that one. The last line.
Okay. I'm just rereading the, I'll just say that. It's been moved and seconded that we approve a resolution for Clackamas County supplemental budget greater than 10% and a budget reduction for fiscal year 2018 and 19. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none? We're done. Yes. All right, the next item is a consent agenda, and take a big breath. I'd ask the clerk to read the consent agenda by title.
Okay, today's consent agenda. Under Health, Housing, and Human Services, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Oregon acting by and through its Oregon Health Authority for operation as a local public health authority for Clackamas County. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the Gladstone School District Number 115 for a new dental pediatric clinic. Approval of Amendment Number 6 to the Revenue Agreement with Health Share of Oregon for behavioral health services to members enrolled with Oregon Health Plan. Approval of an intergovernmental facility use agreement with the Oregon Trail School District Number 46 for the Sandy Clinic. Approval of a local grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services for shelter advocacy and crisis domestic violence services. Approval of a local grant agreement with the Children's Center for Children Abuse Medical Assessment. Approval of amendment with LifeWorks Northwest for relief nursery services. Approval of Amendment Number 1 with Northwest Family Services for student resource coordination. Approval of Amendment Number 1 to the agency services contract with Central City Concerns. Approval of an intergovernmental agreement number 159159 with the State of Oregon acting by and through its Oregon Health Authority for the operation and financing of community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery and prevention services, and problem gambling programs. Approval of a personal service contract with Audus Health Care, doing business as Audus Home Care for Oregon Project for Independent In-Home Care Services. Approval of contract with 22nd Century Technologies, AB Staffing Solutions, with Infogenic Inc. to provide medical staffing services. Under the Department of Transportation and Development, a board order approving the solid waste management fee adjustment. Approval of a contract with Eagle Eisner for the Wilsonville Road paving package. Under Finance, approval of a resolution for a Clackamas County supplemental budget less than 10% for fiscal year 2018-2019. And approval of a resolution for a Clackamas County transfer of appropriations for fiscal year 2018-2019. Under Community Corrections, approval to apply for a grant award between Oregon Department of Justice, Crime Victim and Survivor Services Division, and Clackamas County to extend and enhance direct services to victims of crime. Under the Juvenile Department, approval of an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement number DCJIGAR 107212019, formerly contract number 0607133, Amendment Number 9, with Multnomah County for detention beds for youth. Approval of Amendment Number 7 to the intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County for assessment and evaluation beds for youth. Under the Department of Human Resources, approval of the labor contract between Clackamas County and AFSCME, Central Communications. Under North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Milwaukee for creation of a framework plan for Dogwood Park. Under the Development Agency, approval of a contract with Harper Huff Peterson Regillis for design of the D Street project. And under Water Environment Services, approval of a public improvement contract with Water Environment Services and Stellar Corporation for the 82nd Drive Pipe Pedestrian Bridge improvements. That concludes today's consent agenda.
Do any of the commissioners wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? I'll entertain a motion.
You got this motion, Paul? No?
Sure, I move we approve the resolution for a Clackamas, whoops, wrong part.
I move we approve the consent agenda. I just don't want to be the motion hog this meeting. I was given one.
Well, Ken
to
does
you.
such a great job.
I know,
He's
so
always
we're like
right.
out of
He's just so
practice.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if I've moved it, you can second.
Well, that's interesting. I'll second that.
Right.
I'll second the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Next is County Administrator updates.
Yes, Commissioners, some good news to share. Water Environment Services has been recognized by the Government Finance Officers Association for its distinguished budget presentation. By my record, this is now 4 organizations in the county who have received this award: Water Environment Services, Clackamas County Service District Number 1, North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, and Clackamas County itself. So thank you to our fantastic financial staff and our various departments who achieved this fantastic work. Thank you, Krista and Jennifer, as well, in the audience. Second, Commissioners, you all participated along with me in the Portland Pride Parade and Festival this past weekend, and there's a photo we want to show of you in the parade. There you are, right there. Commissioner Schrader was having some foot issues, so she was in the parade but on a vehicle with another group. So all 5 commissioners were in the parade on Sunday, and this, so you can see, Commissioners, there you are, and it looks like Commissioner Savas, you grew an arm, a third arm, but that's actually me standing behind you there, if you can see that. But I want to thank our staff. This is the 5th year the county has participated in the parade. We had over 80 staff and families join in the Clackamas County contingent. Our previous high was 30 participants, so we had 80 this year, and it's fantastic. Over 1,000 people stopped by the Clackamas County booth in the festival portion of the weekend. I would like to recognize some specific staff for their work on this event. Transportation and Development, Cheryl Bell, who drove the county truck and helped bling it up with a unicorn head and other accoutrements. Behavioral Health, Kelly Blixhaven, and Nina Danielson, who are co-chairs of the Queers and Allies Employee Networking Group, for their support and guidance of the event. From the Sheriff's Office, Gina Fisher and Stephanie Kronk, for driving the Sheriff's Patrol car and also staffing the county booth. All staff in Public and Government Affairs, particularly Scott Anderson, who helped coordinate the parade, the festival booth, and all of the work preparing for the parade. And Assistant County Administrator Emmett Wheatfall, who oversaw the entire effort for our county's participation. So thank you, Commissioners, for being there. And all of this, of course, is to support and recognize our LGBTQ plus communities and our employees and all that they do for our community. So thank you, Commissioners. That's my report.
Thank you. Paul?
Yeah, well, it's summertime, and there's a lot of folks out that are walking and biking, and I was noticing just the other day, I was going from one county meeting to another county meeting, that there were some kids that were right inside the city of Oregon City that were riding their bikes through a culvert, and reminded me of similar stories where, you know, in one instance, it was able to actually build a sidewalk because we had a very unsafe situation. But, you know, at least they have a safe place, a little bit of a safe place to ride their bikes when it's dry, because when the culvert's wet and muddy or full of water, they really can't do that. But, you know, when I was at JPAC this morning, we were talking about safe routes to schools and all those other things. You know, we have a lot, making the case that we have a lot of cities that aren't connected. You use the word contiguous. They're not contiguous with other cities like Multnomah County and Washington County. And we don't have bike lanes, and we don't have sidewalks for pedestrians, and we don't have transit facilities to move some of these larger growing communities and cities. We don't have connections between them, and they're really islands. So I made a pretty good case this morning for that. Mayor Knapp and I had spoke afterwards about getting a similar, Washington County had made a presentation, by the way, about their TV highway project, and they got, you know, some ample time, and I guess this is one of the T2020 projects, and I later spoke with Dan Johnson, our DTD director, about that, and kind of find if we can get a similar opportunity to showcase ours. But I'm hoping that we can really get, ideally, a video or something of the perilous conditions that running between, you know, the Windswept Waters neighborhood, for example, is on one side of the highway on 212 up 224 a little bit. Huge growing community there. And then on the other side of the highway, which is, you can't get there without a car safely, is Hoodview Park, a number of the school facilities, Hidden Falls Park. A lot of the amenities that kids would normally travel to this time of year can't really safely get there. And I just really hope that everyone can be as careful and safe during the summer season, because a lot of people want to move around and travel, and a lot of kids don't have mom and dad to take them where they need to take them, and they really don't have a safe way to get to where they want to go. And I remember when I was a kid, how dangerous that was in the rural area that I grew up in. And, you know, so I just want to bring attention to the fact that safety should be number one, and be careful out there, and be safe.
Dog.
Oh, yes, I have the dog today because Ken's not here. So Mary's going to bring up Rex. This is Rex, and he's a gorgeous middle-aged gentleman looking for a new home to call his own. He will need a home that has no children 13 years or younger. You will need to be his advocate, and he will look to you for guidance navigating the big world. He can get sometimes a little excited when things get loud and rambunctious in the home. So just know that this new family will need to have space just for him, that he can hang out when things are too busy or loud. He'll be your loyal new best friend, and he can't wait to meet you. For more information about Rex or other adoptable dogs, please contact Dog Services at 503-655-8628 or at our website, www.clackamas.us/dogs. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Now, who's next?
Aw.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to follow up on County Administrator Schmidt's talk about the Pride Parade. Wasn't that fun, you guys? That was such a celebration. And it's so nice to connect with our employees and have those moments of connection, learning, and lots of bright colors and good music that was in the boombox in front of us, and just a good time to embrace the connection that we all feel. But we don't celebrate Pride Week without the history of the challenges that have come before. And my deeply personal interest in this area comes from my cousin Shirley, and we just celebrated her 80th birthday back in November. And so it was really quite a time to look at her life and all that she'd been engaged with. So as I was growing up, I was mostly estranged from the larger part of my family with my cousins and my aunts and uncles. But when my father had passed away when I was 22 years old, I really embraced my family, and I really got to know my cousin Shirley. And Shirley was a lesbian, but when I engaged with her and got to know her when I was 22, so that was 30 years ago, she really wasn't able to live her life openly. She ran a business. She made sausage. We come from a strong German family, and there was a sausage business. And when I would go and visit her, and I would go with her on her routes to go deliver her sausages to the different restaurants around San Francisco area, she would say, "Oh, gotta put my earrings on because nobody can know that I'm a lesbian." And I would say, "Oh, wow, that's just, yep, make sure you got your earrings on, cousin Shirley." But as we engaged over the years, I learned more about her advocacy in her life. She was there in San Francisco when they were advocating for Harvey Milk to be elected on as a San Francisco supervisor. She was there when he was killed. She was on the marches. She was a part of the civil rights movement. She was part of the struggle. And it wasn't for many, many years that she was really able to take those earrings off and be who she was in San Francisco, to her clients, to her business. And it just goes to show the struggle. So I just love my cousin. She's taught me so much. I've been able over the years to engage with her and connect with her and ask her deep questions about the struggle in her life and the challenges. And it's with her life and her legacy and her struggle. So I talked to her this morning. I said, "Hey, cuz, is it okay if I share this story?" She goes, "Absolutely, Sonia, you share it." And I said, "Is it okay if I share about the earrings?" And she goes, "Oh, yes, absolutely. You share whatever you need to." So with the pride that we all feel with sort of conquering some of the struggle, we can't forget the struggle and the reason why we have this very important event. So.
Great. Thank you. One thing I just would like to comment on is when Les mentioned Oregon overspending the budget. I don't know if you've looked at Washington D.C. We are overspending the budget by trillions. Luckily, the state of Oregon and we have to have a balanced budget by law. It's too bad the federal government doesn't have one. Then they'd maybe have to think about how they're spending their money. So a couple of things. Yesterday went to a volunteer connection lunch, and it was great. Without volunteers, we couldn't survive. We really couldn't. On our level, I mean, it equals hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I want to thank those folks. But you also got to remember that I sat next to a woman named Mary who was, when she retired, she was very depressed. She went to counseling. She thought there was no reason to live anymore. And then she decided to volunteer, and it gave her a life back. She is so happy and so secure in her life now just because she volunteers. 12 years she's been doing it. A guy next to me has been doing it 17 years. And I think somebody said there was 25 or 30 years people have been volunteering. So I've decided that when I retire, I'm going to volunteer. But also, we have, I thought we had 70 committees and commissions. It said 50 yesterday. All those people are volunteering too. And if you can imagine 70, and they probably vary from 5 to 20 people maybe per committee. That's a lot of people that make this county run. The other thing is that the federal government, we had heard, was cutting Timberlake Job Corps facility, which is outside of Estacada. And they were going to actually close them all and subcontract Job Corps out. So the mayor of Estacada and his wife organized a community meeting, and Ken and I went out. And I'm sure it's just because of us. But the federal government reversed their decision. And so they won't be closing. The mayor of Estacada, well, first we had a guy who'd worked there 25 years, who was from a family of 12, mostly men and some women, and I think all of them went to Job Corps. He has been working for 25 years at Job Corps at Timberlake. Changed his life. It changed all of his brothers' lives. And back then, 25 years ago, women couldn't go to Job Corps. Now they do, and they have for quite a while. But, I was talking about, I own an automotive repair business. Finding technicians was just about impossible. And they trained on engine repair, the carpenters, plumbers, and all these things that really require use of your hands. And it's just an amazing place. And it's a place they actually live. It has housing, and I've got to make my way out there and visit. And so we had a number of people, including representatives from Merkley's office and Wyden's office, who participated in this discussion. The TV channel was there, and the next day they reversed their decision. So I'm sure it was all about us. But anyway, it's great. And then had a gentleman call who watches, Jim Reiser, who watches us on TV, and he wanted to remind folks that summer's starting, and protection from skin cancer is very important, and so please use sunscreen. Friday the 21st is the first day of summer, so it's a great reminder to protect our skin from the sun. So for information, contact the American Cancer Society at 800-227-2727. 2345, or visit www.cancer.org/cancer/skin cancer. And with that, I'd like to thank Jim for reminding us to protect ourselves from the sun. It's not getting less bright or hot or causing less cancer. It's probably causing more. So with that, have a great summer starting Friday, and we're adjourned. Thank you.